And we're back. Hey, Internet.
Yeah, this is awesome. Come on, man, dance. Let's go. Yeah, I love festivals.
Welcome to Worldview Everlasting, your favorite YouTube addiction.
This episode of Worldview Everlasting is brought to you by the letter Awesome, the numbers Sweet Action, and Issues Etc. Talk radio for the thinking Christian. IssuesETC.org.
Yo! And it's good to be back from Christmas break. Actually, truth be told, I'm not back from Christmas break. Today's the day after Christmas, but we're trying to get a little bit ahead of our editing now that we got the edit monkey here to help out. And really make Worldview Everlasting take it to the next level. Those of you on the Lutheran Ninja Clan, thank you very much for your $5 a month. Feel free to join up anytime if you haven't already. It makes a huge difference in what we're able to do and the amount of energy I can bring to the show. Although that may not be true today, because like I said, we're trying to get ahead of what we're doing, maybe get a week ahead in our editing so that when things come up, we know we can keep the flow of the show going. But that means that today, for me, is the day after Christmas. And I'm tired. I had this nasty Christmas Day. I mean, it was okay. You know, went to church, Jesus is born, Lord's Supper. I mean, that wasn't bad, right? But I got this back spasm in my shoulder, and oh my goodness, last night for like 3 hours, I really feel like I was going to die. I mean, death might have been preferable.
I think I just switched something. Oh, brilliant, an injury. Oh, I'm so hardcore.
Have you ever had pain that's so painful that like your vision gets slightly impaired? Yeah, that's how bad my shoulder was hurting. And my wife like worked on it, massaged it a little bit, about 15, 20 minutes, and now today it's like bruised. So, I'm not exactly like on fire today, if you know what I mean, but hopefully it won't be too much of a problem because for this which you're getting a week from today, heading into this coming Sunday of Epiphany, the gospel text appointed, Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. Well, we got a lot to talk about. This is a fantastic text. It's a text we hear a lot, and also we have a lot of assumptions about, a lot of things we bring to it from culture, from the pageants, all this kind of stuff that isn't necessarily bad, but isn't necessarily true or right, and therefore doesn't necessarily help us understand what the purpose of this text is. Hear what I'm saying? All right, so we're going to do our best on this Greek Tuesday to dive into the Greek as well as pull out some of our assumptions and reinsert the assumptions of the original hearer and or authors of the text, which will hopefully help you then see where this text is going. Can you guess? Yeah, to the cross of Jesus Christ, eventually for you. Huh? Really? For me? Yeah, for you. Matthew 2, of course, follows right on the tailcoats of the annunciation to Mary and Joseph that they're going to have a baby, and then the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem. It's really minimal. I mean, it basically is the annunciation, and it's like Joseph marries her, even though, you know, all culture would say that he shouldn't because she had cheated on him. It's the only way you have babies, really, normally. But because of the vision that he receives of the angel and the promise that this is, you know, the Messiah and all, he's like pretty cool with that, and like, he does not know her until the child is born. And that's it. All we're told is this until the child is born. There's no more shepherds. There's none of this angels appearing in the sky. There's none of this excitement, none of the stable, any of that stuff. Which probably wasn't a stable. It was a manger. That's a whole different topic. No, you will not distract me today. But right after this, I mean, he's born, and then Matthew tells us, oh gosh, now I am going to be distracted with a little aside here, because unfortunately you're not going to get a lot of Matthew unless you're in the 1-year series, but those of you in the 3-year series, we are in Luke for the rest of the year, so this is kind of like the dive bomb in and the dive bomb out of Matthew, done exclusively for the sake of Epiphany, the celebration of Epiphany, when we remember that the wise men came to visit Jesus, and it's the only text that we have in the Bible that deals with this, and so we have to hear it every year at this time. But it makes it kind of tough to then get the fullness of, well, what's Matthew doing? Where's he going? Where's he coming from? Can't really mess with that this week, as great as that would be to do. So we're dive bombing in, and Matthew then, getting back to, you know, his whole thing, suddenly says, Jesus is born, and lo, behold, crazy stuff about to happen, right? Idieu. If you're going to learn any Greek word, you got to learn this one because it sounds like French. Idieu. I like French wine. Actually, I hate wine. I like cheese. There you go.
No cheese, Gromit. Not a bit in the house.
And you know, I've heard that the Rhineland's beautiful, really. I only make fun of you if I don't have anything against you. So don't take it personally, you entire French nation out there. Yes? Idieu. Behold, check it out, look right here, hey, attention getter kind of thing. We don't really have words that do this so much in English. Maybe hey, right? No one writes hey, but here it is. It's hey, check it out. Something big's about to happen. Well, what's this big thing that's happening? Well, the ESV tells us that wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, where is the child who has been born King of the Jews? For we have seen his Astera, right? Like asteroid, only not asteroid, but star, a lighted thing in the sky. Literally, the word for star, rising in the east. And we have come to worship him. Proskunesai, worship. This isn't necessarily a confession of him being God, that they get that he's God. In fact, they probably don't get that he's God. It means prostrate, to bow down before, and it could be used of any king, any ruler, any leader that you would worship, but not as an idol. It can also be used to refer to worshiping idols and worshiping God, but you don't want to read too much into this that they've come to worship him. They've come to prostrate themselves before this one who's been born king. They've been led here by this star. Wow, they must be really smart guys to be able to like totally see stars in the sky and know from that kings are being born like in other places on the planet, right? And this is kind of the whole thing. The word in the Greek is magoi, M-A-G kind of sound, O-I kind of sound. This is the word from which we get our English word magic, yeah? And, as much as I enjoy playing Magic the Gathering, built my wife an angel deck for Christmas. She actually liked it. Kind of crazy. But magic in the kind of real sense, as in the divination sense, as in I'm trying to use my human nature to get godlike powers, to even maybe be mystical and read God's mind through signs and portents, chicken entrails, stars in the sky, things like that. This is something the Bible generally frowns upon because, well, it's the abode of demons. If God wants you to have information, he gives you that information. He either speaks it with the word himself or he sends this angel to show up and be like, fear not! And he has to say fear not because angels are freaky. And then he says, here's what God wants you to know. I mean, this is kind of how God works. He also tends to send preachers ever since Jesus. That's what he does. But point being, magic in general is not really looked well upon. And then we have this whole history of, well, what does a magi mean? Because we don't know a lot. There's not much in the Bible that tells us this. This is only phrased in the New Testament. Even in the ancient world, it wasn't the most popular term ever used. We three kings of the Orient, not of Orientar, but of the Orient, are, as in the verb to be, coming to worship you. Well, where does this kings thing come from? And where does this wise men come from? And does this have anything to do with what Matthew actually wants you to get out of this text? Why is he saying, behold, there's kings, behold, there's wise guys, or behold, there's magi? And that can all mean very different things. Now, there's a guy named Mark Allen Powell who's written a pretty phenomenal treatise that I haven't bothered to read, but I've read snippets of it given to me by a guy named Gibbs, who wrote what I think is a pretty decent treatise on Matthew's Gospel, commentary from Concordia Publishing House. And this Powell guy thinks that we've kind of messed up this whole wise men thing, and because of it, we're really missing the point of this text in general. We assume that there are these kings bringing these really expensive gifts. Ooh, wow, that's so great. Look, we should be like the kings and bring gifts to Jesus too. Parumpa-pum-pum and all this stuff, right? Or that there are these wise men who know how to seek for God through intelligence and even rationality. And then we don't quite use that as much, but that was kind of big in the 1800s. To see these wise men as an example of how in nature we can find God through the pursuit of reason, and maybe even the noble savage. The unbeliever who doesn't know about God through revelation, through spoken word given by God, can still find God through things like stars in the sky, right? Or maybe not, yeah? So the question is, how did interpreters, namely us, come to regard these magi as kings, and how did we come to regard them as wise? Which, not all kings are wise, so you can't assume those two go together, right? If I were king, I would be wise. I mean, I know we all think that, right? Yeah, you too. I know. If we just ruled the world, we couldn't both do it. We get in a fight then. And if you did it, you'd do it totally wrong. But if I did it, yeah, that's what it's about. Yeah, right? Right. Well, first Powell shows that the Magi were not really regarded as kings until the 6th century, and there's some connection maybe to the post-Constantinian era where interpreters begin to want to show that kingship, Christian kingship, is a good thing. It's not really clear exactly why this comes about. The thing is that the word magi in the ancient world almost never meant king. And so this is an interpolation, something that's being brought in the early Middle Ages. That time when all the good stuff got brought into the church, right? In the early Middle Ages, there's this interpolation that these are kings when, you even see in Daniel, one of the few other places that the word magi is used in the Bible, that the word magi refers not to kings, but to servants of kings, right? So Nebuchadnezzar has this bad dream and he calls all of his magi, his wise men, men to come to him and tell him what the meaning of the dream is, right? But they're not kings. They're not wealthy per se either. They're servants of kings. So that's kind of the first thing that's just brand new. And I know the song's really pretty. Maybe we should rewrite it, but that never works. So there's that whole side of things. And then there's the question of, well, are they even wise at all? So you got these quotes from, good Christian historians and good Christian Bible interpreters saying that the purpose of this text is to show us the representatives of the best wisdom of the nations of the world. Eastern intellectuals and open-minded Greek wise men, pious Gentiles, who from the beginning are seeking only what is right, and so they find Jesus. Right? Notice how the whole twist of that sucker's on you, right? You be like these pious, wise people who are seeking the right thing from the start, right? That's the thrust of where that's going to go interpretatively. And so these are here to show us how we should also seek after Jesus. I know that sermon's been preached. You might have heard it yourself. You might have preached it yourself. Well, in the ancient church, this certainly never showed up. If anything, they just ignored any thinking that might have been done by these magi. They were depicted as foreigners and maybe pious, and then after Constantine as possibly kings. But if any talk came about their so-called science or arts, it was clearly regarded as a false knowledge, or even, one better, a false religion. Because that's what it was, yeah? Watching the stars, trying to tell the future from them, it's called astrology. There's still people doing it today. You can go and read about it in the newspaper. Who reads newspapers? I'm sure you can find a website where they talk about your predictions for this week, right? Oh, you will have a warm week where people will be nice to you, except for when they're not, and then they'll not be nice to you, but that's okay. Buy a car.
What do you want to ask Miss Cleo?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, I was planning on moving soon. Would that be a good move or not? Like around February?
You need his birthday?
Yes, I do,
Birthday?
baby. Always give me your birthday.
April 28th, 81.
Actually, that's not bad. I don't want you moving in with the other person, though.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you didn't even tell me that part, right? Aye.
Right? I mean, people eat that stuff up. So the point being that when Matthew says, lo, behold, check it out, these magic practitioners of false religions from the East come looking for the King of the Jews. I mean, he really is throwing a total curveball at his predominantly Jewish audience in this Hebraic Gospel of Gospels, where he's quoting Old Testament left and right as prophecy fulfilled in the line of David. Think about it this way. If you had a magi from the east show up in Jerusalem and try to walk into the temple to worship God, you know what they would have done to him? They would have killed him. I mean, right there on the spot. Hey, dude, you can't come in here. Stones. Boom. Dead. Right? You are dirty. You are a pagan. You are thick with uncleanness. You don't even know who God really is. You can talk about God all you want. You don't know who Yahweh the Lord is. He hasn't revealed himself to you. He didn't bring your people out of Egypt. He hasn't spoken to you by the prophets. Oh, you got a copy of the scroll of Isaiah? Isn't that great? Well, then you can be a God-fearer and after a whole lot of ritual purification stand in the outer courts and we'll let you pretend like you're worshiping God. But we'll question it in our hearts all the time, right? I mean, this is who these magi are at best, and they're not. They're not God-fearers. These are pagans. Matthew could have said this. He might as well have said this. For our sake, we should hear him saying this. So, Jesus is born, and behold, pagan idiots who know nothing about God come from the east following a light in the sky, right? Now, how did they know this means a king is going to be born? That's a fantastic question that never gets answered. But it should not diminish the fact that this is a matter of surprise for us in the gospel. These are not the people who should be coming to see Jesus. These are the last people in the world who should be called by Jesus. These are the wicked, yeah? These are the sinners, those who worship mysticism, a false god. And now they're associating Jesus with a kingdom on earth, not a kingdom from heaven, but a kingdom on earth. Everything about them screams ignorance. And this is the gospel for you, because you're ignorant. Yeah, me too. It's all right. We all are. It's our problem as humans. We're sinners. We're broken. We're just disgusting from the inside out. And so here, the point of this is that Jesus did not come for the Pharisees, right? The Pharisees, scribes and priests, they're all sitting in Herod's castle or in the temple, reading the scriptures. They know that the king is to be born in Bethlehem, but none of them are there. Check that out. They're not expecting this. They don't know that this is happening now. Those who ought to be seeing Jesus don't see Jesus. And here comes people that should have no business knowing where Jesus is, and they show up. Hey, God showed it to us. God is revealing to us something which we did not know. Just as Joseph had revealed to him previously that Jesus would be born of the Holy Spirit, something he could not know from reason. Just as later when Peter confesses that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, Jesus turns around and says, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah, because you didn't come up with this. This ain't from men. This was revealed to you by my Father." This was Epiphany, epiphanied to you, right? That's not the actual word he uses right there in the text, but that's the point. That's this day. This is what we're celebrating, the day of revelation, the day when Jesus is manifested as coming for the ignorant, for the sinner, for the loser, for the one who should not be come for. If God were doing what he should do, Jesus should never have come at all. God should have just swept up the planet into the fire as fast as possible, but that's not what he does. Your God instead is a God of grace, and so he sends Jesus to call those who don't deserve to be called. And the Magi, the magic practitioners, the not-so-wise men, the foolish pagans who think that God can be found in nature, who read the stars as if they're omens, and who think that kings live in palaces. They are brought near by God as a demonstration that God also wants to bring you near, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what you have done or left undone. Jesus is calling to you too. These magi are worshipers of the devil, worshipers of lies, worshipers of supernatural powers that are opposed to God. And God says, I don't care. Check it out. Let there be light. Light for you, revealing to the nations. As also that word epiphany is connected to the word phino, light. The wise men say it. I call them wise men again. The magic practitioners say it. It's even in the text that the star is shining. Phino, right? The light is being revealed. And what is this light? I know I've talked in circles a little bit about this and we haven't dug into the text a lot because we've been focusing on the whole Magi thing, but the whole Magi thing is the point. The little pieces about Herod and his tyranny and his opposition to Jesus as a different kind of king. The bits about the gold and the frankincense and the myrrh and whether these are symbolic or not, and it's pretty difficult to make a definitive case that they are, although it's kind of a nice homiletic tool. All of that is secondary to what Matthew is doing at this point in the gospel, which is shock and awe tactics. He's saying, behold, check it out, something unexpected has just happened. The Jewish Messiah, who is the Son of God, who has come to bring forgiveness to the world, is first recognized not by pious Gentiles who figured it out, but by the worst kind of false religious practitioners that God is calling directly to where? To his word. So that they show up at this palace, and not by means of a star in the sky, but by means of a prophecy of old, right out of Micah chapter 5. They are sent with this word to the place where it has been spoken of old by God himself, that the king who would save Gentiles from their sins would be born. Then they find him. How? Because it's been epiphany to them. It's been revealed. Word and sacrament, as it were, have come from the outside to clean their broken false religion, twisting them, not twisted, but straight, unbending them back to the place they should be so that they find themselves prostrated before the child who will be lifted high upon a cross for their sins. They find themselves believers, as it were. Now, as for how much of that they understood at that moment, text doesn't answer that for us. The text instead preaches for you where this child's going to go. But at this point, I want you to wake up and make it clear. This is not a king who has come for the righteous. It's going to be a resounding theme in Matthew's gospel. He has come for sinners. And here are the worst of the worst. People just like you and me, constantly seeking our own desires, looking for proof of God everywhere but the Word of God. And look, revealed, enlightened, epiphanied. Oh, come let us adore him, huh? Yeah? All right, good stuff. Out of time for today. Well, if that show was terrible, just remember, pain in my shoulder. It hurts so bad. Totally, forever. It's a little better today. Oh, man. All right, cool. We'll catch you guys next time.
Wait for it. Wait. It's coming up. Coming up. No!